Oops.
There we are. My fellow old rollers, welcome to the show, Elaine. And I'm not even going to try to pronounce her last name.
No.
She can pronounce it for us. I learned about Elaine through a Facebook group that I'm in with Tom Corey, and so it's kind of she's in a way a referral because Tom was like, you need to learn about this person because I think she would be perfect for your show. And so here we are. And special thanks to Tom for helping us out. And thanks, Elaine, for joining us.
Happy to be here.
So, Elaine, just for our guests who like. Oh, geez, there go my dogs.
I love dogs. Doesn't
This
bother me.
is. Yeah, you said you had six right before the show, like before we. So you
I
hopefully
used to say,
you can sympathize. These guys are just way overexcited, and I podcast in the kitchen by the back door, and so they're convinced that because I'm by the back door, that means they need to go outside, and then because they're done going outside, they just immediately come back in. But I'm by the door, so they got to go back outside. It's just this never-ending loop. It's a real pain. Anyway, back to the show, if my dogs will permit it. um, Tell us a little bit about yourself and how long you've been doing jiu-jitsu and what rank you've achieved and things like that. Just the sort of quick and dirty basics, and then we'll dig more into your experience.
okay. My name's Elaine Beiersdoerfer. That's why you can't pronounce it. Nobody can spell it either. It's German.
Well, my name is Helterbrand, and good luck spelling or saying that one.
Yeah. Similar problem.
Yeah, I couldn't do it till I was
Say
in
it or
10th grade.
spell it. So I was 69 when I started jiu-jitsu. I'm 72 now. I'm a blue belt. I have one stripe on my belt. I hope to get my next stripe sometime in the next, new year, somewhere back in there. Um, I'm married for forever, over 50 years. I've got three
Wow.
kids, seven grandkids.
Well, that's pretty huge. I don't know which to congratulate you on. That's quite a list of accomplishments, to be honest. So this begs the question. Now, I don't want this to sound exploitative or that I'm trying to accuse you of being old or anything like that. But
I am old.
well, it I toe a sort of a dangerous line sometimes because the Old Rollers podcast, it has a name that it makes people think that like it's just a show for old people, and it's not. I think that jujitsu in a certain way can be kind of a fountain of youth if you allow it to be, and so the question that is begged here is what at 69 makes someone think, okay, jujitsu now?
I actually took a judo class when I was in my 20s, a very short, like 6 weeks class. But by the time I got back to my hometown, they weren't teaching it around here. So I didn't find out till I was 69 that there was a gym down the road that taught judo. So I just called them up on a whim and said, "Do you take old people?" And they said, "Yeah." So I showed up at a judo class with teenage boys on one side, and guys that looked like the NFL on the other side. And I took
Mm.
judo for several weeks till my professor said, "Why don't you try the jujitsu mat, which was right next door?" He taught both judo and jujitsu. So I was taking judo one night and then jujitsu the next night, and jujitsu is probably a better fit for me. I can get somewhere in jujitsu, but I really like judo. I do. It's a hard
Oh
sport.
yeah, judo's magical, but it's also there's a lot of we'll say amplitude and pretty hard on the joints to take. If you aren't really 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 good at break falling, it's asking a lot of your joints at any age.
Well, my professor would say, "Throw her carefully." He was afraid I was going to break.
Well, I like that. That sounds like a pretty good guy or gal that was doing the teaching.
He is. He's great.
So, transitioning from judo to jujitsu, and uh, achieving a blue belt in 3 years, like, that's, or less than 3 years. That's a pretty, legit set of accomplishments, I think. And like I said, this is at any age. What were the introductions to jujitsu like, especially coming from sort of a second run at judo? What take me sort of through the emotions of that process.
Well, I trusted my professor. I had to help me, and when I went to the jujitsu mat, he put me with another girl that was had been doing it quite a while, and she was great. And I
Mm-hmm.
just really was all in from the beginning. I really liked the wrestling around on the mat and the
Mm-hmm.
fighting. It was fun for me. So there's not really been a bad moment. I mean, it's all good. I like every bit of it. I get
I,
hurt, but he doesn't.
yeah, yeah. Uh, I, I, I have experienced my share of injuries as well. Haven't had anything catastrophic, but I've had quite a few annoying ones. So, in kind of quickly talking to you, you have a little bit of an accent, and I don't want that to be an insult because I got one too. I actually appreciate them. Where you're from?
I'm from Alabama.
Alabama. I love it. Uh, I'm from Kentucky, and we get accused. I had an episode with Kent Peters of Zombie Proof Jiu Jitsu, who's from uh, far in the northeast of Canada, almost to Greenland, and he accused me of having an accent, but he can't say armbar. So,
Our Brazilian professor can't say belt. He says belch, which we die laughing every time he does.
I think that's amazing. So when you said that you were there was a younger lady that was somewhat had some rank, and when you were introduced to jujitsu, kind of introduced to her as well, and she kind of put you through your paces a little bit, and made sure to teach you some stuff. Like what sort of things did you two work on in the beginning to get your body moving in jujitsu ways? Because that's at you know as I said, at any age, it's a new. Some people say it's a language, and it's pretty tough. So that first little bit is can be really really frustrating, and it sounds like you weren't that frustrated, which I really like.
No,
But there has to be a transition, where you go from moving in definitely not jujitsu ways to moving like a jujitsu person. And so what did you guys do to kind of speed up that learning curve?
and when new people start at my gym, and I was no exception, they pair you with somebody for that night, and they show you drills, then you do the drills, and then you fight afterward. You do some combat stuff at the end, and I pretty well just jumped in and did exactly. We drilled what the guy told us to drill, and she helped me with that. I'm not very flexible, you know. Between my age and the fact that I'm not very flexible anyway, that just makes it. I'm really not very flexible. So some things are harder than others for me.
Yeah, I definitely have that experience. I when I first started, my job requires that I sit a lot, and so my hips were very inflexible, and I've done a lot of work to uh, get them moving correctly again. But that's a process, and so there's kind of two ways I'm accommodating that. The first is that you sort of build a game that accommodates and recognizes that your hips aren't that flexible. But the second is that you try and get them more flexible too. So when you were first starting there, that I keep using the word transition because I do feel like um, I don't know how to explain it, but the the phase of what we typically call spazzy white belt phase.
Oh, yeah.
My opinion of what that is comes from Coach Matt Thornton, who was on the show. I think he was our second. Actually, I know he was our second episode, and he said that typically when we don't have a technical solution to a problem, we will default to a known solution that is not a jiu-jitsu solution. So it may be an explosive solution. It may be a strength solution. Sometimes it may be a flexibility solution. Either way, it's going to be something that probably exploits, some attribute that we have and things like that. But it's not going to be a technical movement because we just don't have enough of a vocabulary for technical movements yet. So when you were going through that phase, what were some of the first things that you picked up that were like, oh, that's the jiu-jitsu thing to do? Like, when you started to find yourself as a jiu-jitsu practitioner on your way to that blue belt.
That's been a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm the forever
I
blue belt
wrestling.
too.
Yeah, I like wrestling from the beginning. So my go-to thing was just scrambling around, pushing and pulling and doing. I'm not obviously not that strong, especially when I started, and I didn't know the moves. And the people I would fight with would stop and say, "Okay, you need to do this, that," and especially the teenage boys, surprisingly, have been extremely helpful with that. If I'm rolling with one and I get caught in a bad position, he'll say, "No, Elaine, you should have done this, or you should do that," and we'll stop and reset and try it again. So they've been great, really. Just the 14 and 15-year-olds.
That cultural element of smash then show is something that was very prominent in my gym too. All of the people that were any better than me, and by that I mean if they were a white belt who had been doing it for a week longer than I had, whenever I would do something dumb, they would exploit it. They would take the position or the submission or whatever. But then as soon as it was over, they would say, okay, so here's what happened. And they would either show me a way to deal with the position or escape the submission, or just like you said, instead of doing this, do that so that you don't wind up there. That cultural, there's a beauty in that because we are competitive. We are trying to beat one another. And yet at the same time, it's you don't want to beat someone who is ignorant. You want them to be good, and then you still want to beat them.
Yeah.
So something else that is fascinating, especially in the that first phase, and I don't care how old you are, there is a great deal of change that has to happen in your attitude, because just like you were saying, like it's wrestling around and fighting, but there has to, when we're fighting, if we're mentally in the place of like I'm fighting for my life, then we're liable to do some things that could be injurious or troublesome. And I think that when people start jiu-jitsu a little bit older and a little bit more mature, there's less of that. There's more of a willingness to say, okay, I don't have the answer here, so I need to just accept that and then move on and try and find the answer. Has that been your experience as well?
Sure, it has. I did have just a few months ago, or shorter than that. We were fighting with a younger a guy that was somewhat small for his size. Of course, he was bigger than me. And during that 3 minute or 4 minute, whatever we were going, when he finished, he said, "You're really mean. I like that. I need to be more like that." And I went, "Well, when you're small, yeah." I was trying to choke him hard, and he wouldn't tap.
Well, it's the gentle art, but it's not
No,
it's not it's
no,
not
it's
as
not.
gentle as they say.
They're lying. They're lying. It's not a gentle art.
Well, something that we learned from that I kind of got from Tom is the idea that everyone has some, like a skill base or an attribute base that they can work from to build a game. So to give an example with Tom, and this is Tom Corey. I mentioned him earlier in the show. Um, he, because of his time as a power lifter and just a strength athlete, had really really strong grips, and from day one. And so his coaches and stuff helped him to build a game that was kind of based around grip strength. So some spider guards, some lasso, maybe some lapel. I know there's some lapel stuff in his game. All really 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 cool stuff. What were the things that you kind of gravitated to in the beginning that were the foundations of your game, the abilities that you had to work with?
My professor told me early on in judo that I was quick. He said, you need to use that. You're quick. You're not going to be as big as everybody. You're not be as heavy, but you're quick. So you need to use that. And so I try to do that. I don't have a good game plan per se. I watch people I'm going to compete against. If I have some videos, I certainly watch that and work on some of the things they do to defend.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not a good chess player at all. It's hard for me to think ahead, and jiu-jitsu is really a mental as well as a physical game. You've got building blocks, and sometimes it's hard for me to get up those steps.
Yeah.
Always been hard. Always been hard for me to memorize stuff.
Well, I would like to be able to make fun of you for that, but I have the same problem. So it's not a skill set that I was born with either. It's interesting. We think as we age that quickness is one of the things that goes away, and yet hearing from you, your professor who is there observing you says that quickness is probably your biggest attribute. So that's pretty fascinating. Kind of talk a little bit about that and exploring how to use quickness in your game, either from a judo or a jiu-jitsu perspective.
But sometimes you can see something coming. I'm just quick to react to it. I'm not a quick thinker, but I seem to be a quick reactor. I don't know if that makes any sense to you, but
it does.
It's me out of some tight spots to be able to move quickly from one spot to the next. Jiu-jitsu is just so much fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun. I love every bit of it.
What it sounds like to me, if I were from the outside looking in, and obviously I haven't rolled with you or anything, it sounds like you're quick to adapt muscle memory, and then that muscle memory goes into action in a sort of an instinctive level quickly, and you can
beginning. Finally. Takes
Well,
a long time for muscle memory, but I'm beginning. I try to go to as many classes as I physically can because I need that repetition, and I also video the drills and I watch them. When I get home, because I walk out the door and go, what the heck we do?
Mm-hmm.
I remember. So I sit in video, and I've got a whole list on my phone in albums of these are side controls, or this is this, or this, that. So I can go back and watch them and try to remember what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I have to do the same thing. My job requires that I travel for work, and so I don't get to be with my class or my instructor as much as I would like. And so, same as you, I videotape the techniques and whatnot, so that when I'm on the road, I have access to the information that I'm supposed to be learning, and try to practice it as much as I can. And I started adopting the drills in the pool from the Silver Fox, Carl Provick, because a lot of times hotels have pools, and so I could do some wrestling drills or things like that, and not put stress on my knees. So that was another tool that I put to work for the same reason, like putting that muscle memory in, so that it would be ready to go when I did get back to class.
I tried practicing on my husband, but I hurt his shoulder, so he won't let me do that anymore.
Oh
He walks around
no.
saying, "Don't touch me."
Well, that's a story I don't think is appropriate for the show. I think we'll just let that one be. Because I'm going to protect your husband's dignity and just leave it to be.
He's got arthritis in his shoulder, and I'm so used to the teenagers being so flexible. You can bend them forever before they say anything. I probably moved that shoulder less than an inch, and it hurt him. So
Yeah.
that's what
Well, I have a little bit of arthritis in my shoulders too, so I feel his pain. Uh, so you mentioned earlier uh, that you train as often as your body will let you. What does your training load look like? You know, your training week, and how do you regulate your body? Like, are you just going by like it feels like I need to take a day off, or are you going with like, okay, I'll do 2 days early in the week and then one day at the last of the week, something like that? How do you split your training up?
before I got hurt during the COVID lockdown. I hurt my back on the farm. So before that, I was going 3 to 4 days a week, 2 night classes, 2 day classes, 2 lunch classes if I could. But after I hurt my back, when we came back, we were only going two nights a week. But I've just recently picked up the lunch class too. So I'm usually, and one of the nights I've tried to stay 2 hours. So I'm getting 3 to 4 hours a weekend, and then I really need the weekend to rest because by
Yeah.
then I'm just really tired.
Well, yeah, and if you're farming too, that's a physical job that's gonna require recovery as well. I
Well,
grew up on a farm.
horses, dogs, and cats. It's just a lot of animals to take care of in the afternoons, water and the hay and that stuff.
Yeah, I that growing up on a farm, I had similar experience. I hated it then, but as I've gotten older, I wish I could go back to it. That's kind of strange how that happens. Um, Talk a little bit about you. You said that you compete, and when you compete, I know you compete at a pretty high level for your blue belt and whatnot. So let's talk about the what what got you into competing, and then what are your competitive goals, and what are you hoping to get out of that, and what's that like?
I My professor came to me one day and said, "I'm taking you to the Worlds in Las Vegas," and I went, "Huh?" you know. I said, I've never competed before. And he said, "Oh, that's okay." I said, "I don't have my blue belt yet." And he said, "Well, you will by the time you go." I'm going, "Oh, listen." So I was a brand new minute blue belt, and I went to World Masters last year. And we fought 4 matches in 70 minutes. And I won one, I lost one, I tied two. I wound up getting 2 silver medals. Um, I'm the first,
Congratulations.
yeah, that one win may be the only one I ever get because after that, every competition, the girls are either a great deal younger than me, like 20 or 25 years, or they outweigh me by 25 pounds. I either have to go up in weight class or I have to go down ages, and you get killed. I mean, but it's fun. I don't mind.
Yeah. Well, there's going to be challenges there.
Oh, yeah.
Um, Tom has talked a lot about competing as well, and I keep referencing him because he's 72 as well, and the goal of this the goal of this show. So to give you a little bit of background on me, I started the show when I turned 40 because I wanted to investigate and learn from, we'll call ourselves youth impaired or seasoned grapplers. Uh, how to roll dangerously into my later years. And initially, my I thought that my goal was I wanted to do jujitsu, at as high level as I could until I was 65. And then I was introduced to Tom, who started at 65 and is like just a really, really tough brown belt at 72.
Yeah.
And so that changed my standard because I thought 65 was probably the limit, like I didn't know. And uh, Tom was like, "Man, I was just getting started at 65. Like that was that was the bad time."
Uh,
And so talking to him and you, I find myself really excited and really inspired that, the road, as short as it is, can still be a long one. Like there's a whole lot that's available to us. And there's a great deal of excitement on my part to explore that and grow in it. So looking back on it, like you've got now, I think it was 3 years of training, and competed and gotten silver at Worlds at blue belt, which is awesome. Uh, what have you learned that if like you were me, would you want to know? Like, what have you picked up that says these are the things that have really made a difference and helped me to be successful, both in terms of being able to do jiu-jitsu at like a few years on me, and also to be able to do it at a high level, because I don't want to be just doing it like okay, and my listeners don't want to be just okay at it. We want to be great.
I, I want to be better too. I mean, I'm old, but I want to progress. I
Oh
don't want to
yeah.
be always, you know, horrible.
Me either.
I'm pursuing a sport I'm not even good at, but I can be better. I don't, and I'll work on that. I think staying really mentally in the game is really will get you further. You have to be careful with your body, of course, but uh, my gym is very welcoming. They're very encouraging. I think that's really important
Oh,
with
I
any
agree.
jiu-jitsu person. I hear from a lot of women who have some trouble with that in their gyms with the
Hmm.
guys.
Hmm.
That doesn't happen in my gym. Professor Khalifa, woo, he runs a tight gym. You behave, you're respectful. There's no bad language. There's no bad attitude. You don't hurt the girls. That's you know.
Well, so what I'm hearing from that is the two elements that you mentioned. The first was mentally being in the game, uh, and we'll come back to that. The second one was culture. That the culture on the mat there is accommodating and welcoming, and people are. It sounds like even the teenage boys are invested in your success. They want to beat you, but they want you to be good. And that's a. I think that's a. I forget the name of the book. Is it the Culture Code, where he talks about cultures of excellence? I think those are kind of the keys of a culture of excellence. Is that you have to simultaneously want to be the best, but you want everyone to be as good as they can be, and you're just going to have to still be better.
Right. That's exactly right.
So, coming back to the idea of being mentally in the game, I probably have some ideas about what that means, but in your words, what does staying mentally in the game mean?
I think it means just staying excited about it, and it's there are days when I go, I just don't think I can make it to the gym, but I make myself go, and when I get there, I'm always so glad I went. You know,
Hmm.
there's some pushing on my part to go. Don't be a wuss. Go to class.
Yeah.
Because once I get there, it's always great. I'm never sorry that I went to class. I'm always grateful that I made myself go, even if I was tired or I was sore or my back was hurt, whatever it is. I try to ignore whatever pain I can.
Yeah, that's a skill in itself. Just
Yeah,
learning
it is.
to mentally just ignore something. Um, Something that I found, my experience as a 35-year-old, fairly strong for a soccer dad, male, was that I had those same feelings. I can remember more than once sitting in the parking lot of the gym on 100-degree day in my truck, just thinking, man, if I go in there, it's going to be so hot and I'm just going to get smashed and it's not going to be fun. And I don't really want it, like I don't really want to do it. And then, one of my friends would pull up and, you talk to him for a minute and that would kind of go away and you just walk in and get started. And then obviously, from then on, it would be just fine. There's only one day that I could say that maybe I kind of probably shouldn't have gone. And so our gym doesn't have any air conditioning or anything. It's just got a big open like garage door with a big fan. and it was 105 degrees one day,
Whoa.
and it was a gi class. And only two people showed up other than me, and it was the teacher and one of his black belts. And I was a white belt at the time, and I remember just looking, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know if today's the day. And so I just set a goal for myself that today my goal is, when this is all over, I'm not going to go home and just burn my gi and quit. And the joke was on me because there was so much sweat in that gi. I could have thrown it into the sun. It wouldn't have caught fire. Like,
Yeah. Oh, the guy's sweating bad.
man, that was the one day where, when it was over, I was just like, I probably should have sat this one out.
But you might have learned a lot because you're the only student.
Yeah, and rolling with the two black belts, same thing, same culture as what you had. Like, they are all of the upper belts were invested in my development and my success. So I didn't feel taken advantage of or just beaten up. It was a good thing. Pause for just 1 second, okay? All right, I'm back. Sorry, I had to yell at the dogs there. They well, let's see. When we were talking about like being mentally in the game and being excited. Um, it seems to me that that's probably a skill that you have. That's a kind of a natural skill. You seem to be a fairly enthusiastic person in general.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I'm a glass half full.
yeah, yeah, and I will be honest. I think that that's a jiu-jitsu skill too, because the frustration, like when you're in bottom side control, uh, for the 100th time, and it's like Groundhog Day. There has to be something that mentally you just kind of you accept that as okay, and then you move on from that. And for me, I found that finding the smallest victories was what really helped. So
Yeah.
if I was in bottom side control once again for the 100th time, maybe I get submitted, 7 times this week instead of 13, or probably it was more like 12 instead of 13. And I've got to find solace and excitement in that and say, like, I know I'm getting better because this happened. What were some of those things for you that helped you survive that period where you're just, to use some of my military friends' language, you just have to embrace the suck a little bit?
Okay. Yeah. I'm so used to losing that it just, you know, like in a competition, if I was fighting, like one girl was, I think 38 or 39 and 5'6", I'm 5 foot. I lasted about a minute and a half. I was happy to get that far.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's I didn't feel like I can't concentrate on winning or losing because the fact is more than likely I'm going to lose because of my age and size and whatever skill level. But if I put in everything I can, I'm good with it. I can always find one or two things when I watch the video that I said, "Oh, that was good, Elaine."
Mm-hmm.
Might not have been great everywhere else, but at least that point was good. Sometimes it's just hanging in long enough. The last Pan Am's games, I hung in for 5 minutes. I busted my lip so bad they had to stop the fight and get the blood off my face. But then we just started back. So, there's
So,
a mental toughness to it. There is, isn't there?
you know, I want to call it mental toughness because that makes me sound, like, oh, I think I'm a really tough person. But I'm not sure that in my case I can call it that. It's just like I'm willing to uh, just accept that today's not the day, like in the hopes that tomorrow or maybe 10,000 days from now, that will be the day, like if I just keep the work. Um, and so I don't feel that that's, for me at least, I don't feel that that's a particularly, like tough mentality. It's more of just like, I'm willing to be the grinding stone, so that someday, or maybe I'm willing to be ground on so that someday I can be the grinding stone, if that makes sense.
I think that's mental toughness, Harrison.
Well,
You stay with it, if you can stay with it. I mean, there are a lot of people that don't. My professor, I mean, I see people come and go all the time in that gym.
yeah,
And I hung in, so
yeah. Chris Howder says that it's not who's best, it's who lasts.
yes.
And I think that there is definitely some truth to that. Uh, we have a joke. So my instructor Michael is a tremendously nice guy. Like he's like a brother to me. But he's actually very shy, and he's just pretty introverted guy. And so when I first joined the gym, we had what we call Mean Mike, which was like the early version of him as a teacher. And so I asked him, like, do I call you like sensei or professor or whatever? He's like, just Mike is fine. And I said, well, I'm Harrison. It's nice to meet you. And he goes, if you're here in 3 months, I'll learn your name. Like,
Oh, wow.
which really offended me at the time. But having done jujitsu for a while, I can say that he actually was onto something there. And he was just kidding, but I didn't know him well enough to know, like his sarcasm. So, but he was speaking from the truth that a lot of people quit really quickly, and a lot of people who were much better than me. I could tell, like, these people are just gonna, crush me if they're here another 2 or 3 months, and then they wouldn't be.
And sometimes life just gets in the way. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it's not so much quitting as they don't have time anymore because their life has changed for whatever reason. Um, at my age, what else do I have to do besides ride my horse and play with the grandkids and go do jujitsu? So it's
Yeah,
easy.
it's a tough life you're living, Elaine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you can do worse. See, I am currently um, I'm on a voluntary furlough from my job, and so I'm getting half of my regular pay. It's not great, but it is enough with some savings and stuff that we're doing okay, right? And my wife was like, "So when are you going back to work?" And I was like, "Hopefully never." Like because I play with my kids. Like I said, I have to travel for work. My daughter is 3, my youngest, and so every night since this all started, I've been the one to be able to put her to bed, and this is just like a golden opportunity for me. So I don't want to sound like I'm happy about all this, because this is a hard time. But oh, sorry about that. Uh, it it has had some benefits for me, and I'm trying to find any way to find some gratitude for this experience, because it has challenged me in terms of my jujitsu progression. I was just starting to feel like I was getting decent when everything had to shut down, and my job was going well, and I was getting achieving some things that I had been trying to achieve for a long time, and then everything just kind of went away, and it was really hard on me mentally. And I know a lot of people experience the same thing. Um, and a part of this show has been to try and find ways to come out of this experience as good as I can be, if that makes sense. So learning and talking to people like you about, like, what are your experiences and what has helped you to be better. I'm trying to integrate those things into my own experience and into my game, so that this shutdown, while it has cost me, hopefully I can achieve a good positive jujitsu outcome from it, if that makes sense.
It does. I've been going to competitions, and you cannot walk into the gym but 2 hours before you fight. You can't, so I can't watch any of my teammates, which I really would rather do. They do let my coach in and my husband, so those those two are there. But I would like to have gone and watched, the other guys or my professor fight, which I haven't been able to do. And they do usually wear masks going in until you're ready to fight.
Sorry about that. I once again arguing with the dogs. They're not very kind. But what you're saying there, like the competition experience. I know a lot of competitions have canceled or postponed until this is all kind of over. Uh, the IBJJF has done some limited competitions, but there have been less of them. And just like you said, the procedures and the way we have to deal with it is different. Uh, what has your kind of COVID experience been? In terms of your jiu-jitsu journey, what have you lost or what have you gained in this time period?
Well, we did Zoom classes for about 2 months. So I would just click in at night or during the day whenever they were doing the class and watch the Zoom class, which was fine. But we opened up in June, the
Yeah.
gym. So we were back in the gym pretty early compared to other people. So I didn't, besides the fact that I'd hurt my back while we were off, which wasn't helpful. Uh, but other than that, it's been a good experience. And of course, while we were on lockdown, the grandkids just spend all their time over at the farm because they can fish and they can shoot their guns and they can ride the horses or go four-wheeling or hang out with Granny. So we had a good time. It was actually okay for me.
Yeah, I'm trying to turn it into a good time for me too, because it's I know there's a lot of people that are having it harder than I am, but it's certainly not been easy, and you know like I said, this time period is, if nothing else, has given me an appreciation for what jujitsu and grappling were had given me, because I definitely, when we were forced to stop, I had like my attitude and just general grumpiness kind of skyrocketed, and so I had to do some things to kind of bring that back and come back to myself. And previous to this, I did not. I knew that it like the being able to meet with my friends and grapple and roll was good for my physical health, but I didn't realize that I was also using it as a mental health booster as well.
That's true.
Well, to kind of wrap up, I think we've covered a lot of the things that I wanted to cover. Uh, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your game planning in your competitions, because just like we were saying, you may not have access to film of everybody that you compete with and whatnot, but when you go to build your competition game plan, um, that to me is an interesting concept, because you have to figure out ways to bring the person to your game quickly. And so what are your kind of keys that you put together so that you can be in an advantage as much as possible to get on the podium there at Worlds?
Well, my main objective, quite frankly, is to survive. At my age, I'm surviving. Um, Other than that, the professor used, especially when competitions are coming up, we spend a lot of time together with him showing me varying things. I do say it takes some private lessons from a brown belt that is my size, young girl, and she's great. She's been really, really helpful because learning from somebody that's 5 foot and 110 or so, same as me, is really helpful for me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, now in Worlds I was fighting girls that were about my size. Pan Am's, no, I had to go up 2 weight classes, so she was a lot bigger, and she's a purple belt now. She got her purple belt after the Pan Am Games, so a lot more, experience than me. But I really don't. I don't. Besides watching my videos, trying to remember, exactly if I'm in this position, I need to do that, or if I'm in this position, I need to do that. I'm not real good at game planning like the guys in the gym do. Obviously, you do. I
Well,
think as I get more into it, maybe I'll be better. But I do know, like one of the girls we knew, she pulls guard, so we practiced that a lot. Not that it did me any good. I forgot everything I learned.
I
But I'll do better next time. I do good.
Look, did the nerves get to you on that one?
Not nerves. I'm nervous before I step on the mat, but once I'm on the mat, I'm in. I mean, I don't think about it. I just didn't. My brain didn't kick in real well. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't nerves. It just, I left my head on the side of the mat. I think I keep telling my professor if I could just borrow his brain for just a little bit.
Yeah.
They know so much.
Yeah. No, I definitely feel you on that.
It's a
Uh,
journey. I mean, it's a never-ending journey. And when you think of it that way, it's less of a you're not a racing to a finish line. You're just running for the fun of it. It's
yep.
it's a different it's a different attitude to me.
I can definitely see where you're coming from there. I think that's one of the things as we were talking about people who quit pretty quickly is they don't have enough time to get the sense of that as a journey, and so they kind of come in and they're getting smashed in roles, and it's like, well, I suck at this, and I don't want to suck at something, so I'm just gonna
It's an
you know
ego.
yeah, and it's very hard because I having I don't think of myself in any way as a fighter. I'm like the wimpiest dude, and even at that coming in, it was still tough to just accept that I'm just going to get crushed for 45 minutes, and that's going to be my experience. It's not easy to accept that, and especially if you have anything invested in. Oh, I'm a tough guy. Well, it's going to be hard, to survive that when some doughy, 45-year-old attorney, puts it to you, and you're a young, strong, 22-year-old that's ready to fight, and you're suddenly getting smashed by somebody that you don't feel like should be able to do that.
That's true. I mean, I'm a very easygoing person. I'd rather have somebody cheat me than fight about it for the most part. But jujitsu's different. Once I start on fighting, if we're in that part of the class, I'm not nice anymore. I don't want to be nice.
Yeah.
Does that sound bad? I'm smart
No.
at all though. I mean, every video of me in competition and in class, I've got a grin on my face. My professor keeps saying, "Put on your game face," and I went, "That is my game face. That's it. That's my game face." My husband too. They keep saying, "Elaine, put on your game face." That's it. This is it.
I like that, and I think that's a perfect place for us to pause. Um, if people want to learn more about you, Elaine, or maybe reach out to you and get some advice, what are some ways that they could learn more about you?
Instagram is the best. Jiu-Jitsu Grandma on Instagram. If you Google that or go on Instagram, you can find me there. I post a lot of the things we did in class.
Hmm.
You know, little bits of fights I've been doing and competitions and things that are going on around the class and occasionally around the farm. I'll stick in something about the dog or the horse.
There you go. Yeah, I've been following you for a while. I like the farm stuff. I like the
Yeah,
jujitsu stuff. It's a very good. Your jujitsu grandma page is a really good one.
good. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. My professor said I could be a black belt by the time I'm 80, and I'm going, I don't know that I could go to 80. But I would like to at least get to a purple belt, which would take me another several years. But
Well, you never know. That might be next week.
not, no, it won't be next week. I hadn't got but one stripe on my blue belt. And I'm really not, you got to earn your belts. You
Oh
know,
yeah. Oh,
and earn,
absolutely.
I feel like you got to earn your stripes. You've got to show up and be present and try and work at it. Uh,
Yep.
I don't want that purple belt if I haven't earned a purple belt. You know.
Uh, I wholeheartedly agree with you. I forget the name of him, but there was a uh, really famous mountaineer who said, like, we don't climb the mountains because they're not tall. We climb them because they are tall.
Excellent.
Elaine, thank you so much for your time and your insight. It's been just an absolute pleasure to talk with you. I find myself really inspired to go do some grappling right now. Like I'm just talking to you has got me really pumped up. But I can't thank you enough for being willing to join us. And on behalf of the Old Roller Nation, man, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for asking me. It was great to meet you. Give your dogs a pat for me.
Now, well, I'll give one. I like him. The other one's not getting
Oh, no, don't.
it.
Most obnoxious dog you have will be the one you miss the most when he goes.
Oh, I don't know.
There.
He's definitely obnoxious.
I have a few myself, so I understand.
All right, you
So
may be right. I'll give him a dog treat. How about that?
that's a good